Imagine you get into your car, drive to an intersection, and have absolutely no idea which way to turn to get to your destination. That is a network without routing. Without the concepts we are covering today, the internet effectively stops existing. If you want to pass your CompTIA Network plus N10-009 or a Cisco CCNA, you don't just need to memorize these terms. You need to master the logic behind how data finds its way home. Introduction. Welcome back to Listen to Learn. In our last few sessions, we broke down the Aussie model and tackled the math behind subnetting. Now we are moving up the stack to layer 3. Today we are discussing routing basics. Whether you are configuring a Cisco router for the first time or trying to secure that certification, understanding how a router makes decisions is arguably the most critical skill in networking. We are going to cover default gateways, dissect the routing table, compare static versus dynamic routing, and explain the crucial difference between administrative distance and metrics. Let's get your traffic moving. Section 1. The role of the router and the default gateway. Let's start with the fundamental device, the router. While a switch connects devices within the same network, a router connects different networks together. It is the bridge between your local LAN and the rest of the world. To understand this, we have to talk about the default gateway. Imagine you are in a room with only one door. If you want to talk to someone inside the room, you just walk over to them. That is layer 2 switching. But if you want to talk to someone in a different room, you have to go through that door. In networking, that door is your default gateway. For a computer, the default gateway is simply the IP address of the nearest router interface. When your computer tries to send a packet, it first checks the destination IP. It asks a simple question: is this destination on my local subnet? If the answer is yes, it sends it directly. If the answer is no, it sends the packet to the default gateway. This is a major exam point for the N10-009. If a user can access local printers and file shares but cannot browse the internet, the first thing you check is their default gateway configuration. If that field is blank or incorrect, the computer is trapped in its local room. It has no way out. Section 2. Dissecting the routing table. Once the packet hits the router needs a map to know where to send it next. This map is called the routing table. You can view this on a Cisco router using the command show IP route, or on a Windows machine with the route print. Regardless of the vendor, every entry in this table contains specific pieces of information that you need to know. Let's break down the 4 key components of a route entry. Point 1. Destination network. This is the address of the remote network we want to reach. It's not usually a specific computer IP, but the network ID itself. Subnet Mask or prefix tells this router how large that destination network is. Next hop. This is the IP address of the next route in the path. The router doesn't need to know the whole path to Google servers. It only needs to know which router to hand the packet to next. Itself, like gigabit Ethernet 0/1, that the packet needs to leave through. Think of the routing table like a series of road signs. It doesn't show you the destination house, it just points to the highway on ramp and says California is that way. Now, how does a route actually get into this table? There are 3 main ways. Directly connected routes. As soon as you plug a cable into a router interface and give it an IP address, the router automatically knows about that network. Static routes. These are routes you, the administrator, typically type in manually. Dynamic routes. These are learned automatically from other routers using protocols like OSPF or BGP. Section 3. Static versus dynamic routing. Let's dive deeper into this distinction because the N10 1-009 exam loves to compare static and dynamic routing. Static routing is manual. You tell the router exactly where to go. Pros: it is secure, uses zero bandwidth, and puts very little load on the router's CPU. You have total control. Cons: it doesn't scale. Imagine trying to manually type in routes for the entire internet. If a cable breaks, the static route doesn't care. It keeps sending traffic into a black hole because it doesn't automatically update. Dynamic routing, on the other hand, uses protocols. You might hear about IGP, Interior Gateway Protocols, like OSPF or ERGRP, and EGP, Exterior Gateway Protocols, like BGP. Pros: it is scalable and resilient. If a link goes down, the router talk to each other, realize the path is broken, and automatically calculate a new route. Cons: it uses more CPU and memory, and the chatter between routers consumes some bandwidth. For the exam, remember this rule of thumb. Use static routing for small, simple networks or stub networks with only one exit. Use dynamic routing for large, complex enterprise networks where the links might fail and redundancy is required. Section 4. Making decisions, administrative, distance, and metric. Here is where it gets tricky. What happens if a router learns about the same destination network from two different sources? Maybe you typed in a static route, but OSPF also learned the path to the same place. Which one does the router choose? It uses a tiebreaker system called administrative distance, AD. Administrative distance measures trustworthiness. The lower the number, the more the router trusts the source. A directly connected route has the AD of 0. It is most trusted because the router is physically attached to it. A static route usually has an AD of 1. The router assumes that since you typed in it manually, you know what you are doing. OSPF has an AD of 110. RIP has an AD of 120. So, if you have a static route AD1 and an OSPF route AD110 to the same place, the router ignores OSPF and uses the static route. But what if the router learns two paths from the same protocol? Say OSPF finds two different roads to get to the destination. Then it uses the metric. While AD is about trust, metric is about cost or distance. The metric is calculated differently depending on the protocol. It might be based on bandwidth, delay, or hop count. The router will always choose the path with the lowest metric. To summarize, administrative distance selects the best protocol. Who do I trust more? Metric selects the best path within that protocol. Which road is shorter? Section 5. The ultimate decision. Longest prefix match. There is one final rule that overrides everything else. The longest prefix match. If a router has a route to 192.168.1.0/24 and another route to 192.168.1.0/27, and the packet comes in from 192.168.1.5, which one does it use? It uses the /27. Why? Because it is more specific. The higher the subnet mask number, the prefix, the more precise the route is. The router always prefers the more specific match, regardless of AD or metric. This is a classic gotcha question on network exams, so keep your eye on that CIDR notation. Conclusion. To wrap up, routing is the process of moving data across layer 3. Remember that the default gateway is your exit strategy. Static routes provide manual control. Dynamic routes provide scalability. And when in doubt, the router trusts the lowest administrative distance and the longest prefix match. If you found this breakdown helpful for your studies, please hit that like button. It helps the algorithm route this video to other students who need it. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into dynamic routing protocols. Thanks for listening to Learn, and I'll see you in the next one.